All right. Thank you, William. That was very well thought out and very spot on, or I should say on point um, video for me right now because, as you well know, I'm getting ready to do another standalone video that involves language, freedom of speech, things like that. And so this definitely feeds, fuel into my brain pan. So let's go right to it. Now, and speaking of I can't remember exactly how you phrased it, but speaking to that, where the cultures that seem to do the best are the ones that are most literate, or to say that literacy has helped those cultures come very far out on top as comparatively to other cultures, and how that is a direct result of literacy within that culture, speaks a lot towards who we are as a people on this planet. This is a natural part of our evolution, and it's really fascinating to me because I did a class when I was in college, so 4 years ago, 5 years ago, that was called Multiculturalism in America. I can't remember the name of the man that wrote the book right now, but I'll definitely put the link in down below for afterwards. And he spoke directly to that in several different ways. He pointed out, the author pointed out that one of the reasons that the colonies flourished was a direct result of the English influence in terms of education and literacy. And they were all for, at that particular time, because this came in the time of the Enlightenment in Europe, and they were all for getting the peasant class educated because they recognized that um, a peasant class that could read and write could actually take up a lot of the slack that was happening in the upper management and aristocratic circles, because it was entirely too much. There was entirely too much correspondence to keep track of. The record keeping, which was usually done by a group of people that had a long history of that, usually familially. You brought up the Jewish culture. I don't want to say the Hebrew culture, but the Jewish culture, and that actually was a predominant role that they played in throughout Europe and the world, for that matter, by way of business venture. They were just rawr, they were just the best tax people. I mean, or I should say, accounting people. I mean, if you had yourself a Jewish accountant, your stuff was in order. If you had a German accountant, it was a little sloppy. If you had an Italian accountant, God bless you, it was a mess. I mean, that was some of the most corrupt um, um, business and state deals because of math in Italy, just for that reason, because no one was keeping track of it well or accurately. So that has a lot of historical significance. I want to move on to another one of your points, which is that um, you brought up the Scottish and Irish culture quite a bit and talked about imperialism in relation to that, and then made an inference to colonialism later. And on top of that, you brought up, of all people, Thomas Sowell, as you know, one of my favorite economists and writers. Um, he did a book called Black Rednecks and White Liberals. And in the first couple chapters of that book, he explained very succinctly and methodically how that worked. Um, Both Irish and Scotch Highlanders All right, there's a difference between Scotch Highlanders and Lowlanders because Highlanders were not educated people. Um, they were lazy. They had no real ambition to do anything. They just wanted to be left alone when they came over to the United States, out there in the swamp and out up there in the hills. And they had to work eventually, so they were a good many of them worked in the slave trade, and they imbued that culture on Southern blacks to a point. To this very day, a lot of the phrases that are in black culture, especially Southern black culture, are holdovers from the Scotch. And the funny thing is about that, they shunned the idea, excuse me, of reading and writing and learning and furthering yourself. And you and I, son, know certain people in our life that are like that. They're like, yeah, if it's about bettering yourself, we're going to make you feel bad about that. And yeah, these people rebelled in a big way. And that also actually explains why black culture today is so focused on keeping their people educated, correcting speech patterns, on and on and on, because they want to be better than what they were handed when they were brought here. And that's really cool. It's an interesting take, and I got that out of the Multiculturalism in America book as well. That kind of corresponds and um, backs that up, what Soul wrote. So the thing is this, even though there's a lot of negative impact from things such as colonialism, imperialism, which you brought up, there's also positive aspects that come later. Now, yeah, Ireland's doing pretty good compared to what they used to, but they're still in a bit of a financial and long ongoing cultural mess, um, which is a topic for another time. But the Scotch as well. And they're both in the position in modern day, they're actually gaining their independence, and they're finding out it might not all be what it's cracked up to be. It's that old disgust with being loyal subjects to the crown, and understandably so. I think we all recognize the fuckery that happened from England to everybody at some point. But the thing is, England recognized that too, and actually undid a lot of the stuff they do. Nobody likes to talk about that today. They would just rather play into the victim mindset. But no, England actually paid reparations to slaves, and England policed the seas, has an act of contrition to their part in expanding and exploiting the slave trade. And it's really fascinating stuff. But I digress. We're talking about language. We're talking about literacy specifically, and the ability to think for yourself, and the ability to make written word out of thought and spoken word out of thought, so we can get certain concepts and ideas across to each other that helps, hopefully helps better each, but makes life a lot more easier than what it used to be due to limited constraints of language, and for that matter, cultural barrier as well, which I think you pointed out a little bit. So this is all great food for thought. This is stuff that, as you're well aware of, son, is a big part of my headset and the kind of things I've been learning and the way I look at things and address them. Because the truth is the truth is the truth. It doesn't matter if you agree with it. It doesn't matter if you like it. It doesn't matter at all what anyone feels about it. It just was what it was, and it impacted us the way that it did. And here we are now. And there's no undoing that, or at this point, making reparations is a bit passe. Nobody wants to hear that right now, either in certain circles, and I don't really care. You can't make people pay for things that were done by people that were not us, save the color of our skin and our, family of origins. things nowadays are nowhere near as difficult. I mean, look at the handheld devices we have. I mean, we communicate writ large. We're probably the smartest culture that's ever seen the face of the earth. And I'm sure there's a lot of cultures that would disagree with that. But it's not about being smarter, it's about adaptability. It's not about who's the best and your brightest, it's about who's the most adaptable. And we in America have that hands down. So, with all of that being said, and I'm sure I sound like some horrible nationalistic Nazi dude or something, which I am the furthest thing from. You have to recognize that the truth is the truth is the truth. And um, language helps us do that. Literacy helps us do that. It helps us see what other people have experienced and done that we might learn from it. And in doing so, find out that the truth of things the way we thought they might have been are not that. They're just what we thought they might have been. When we take in other sources of information and other schools of thought, then you start getting better. Anyhow, thanks for the prompt. I went on 11 minutes. That's a bit longer than I intended, but that's generally about what my videos do, 9, 10, 11 minutes. So it's going to be a bit longer, but 15 is perfectly fine as per course of the YouTube audience. And a lot of people out there do like long form, so keep that in mind. That being said, thank you very kindly. I have another video to work on, and that's coming up shortly. And as far as the audience goes, please, please, please like, subscribe, share, and God, please make comments. I want to hear comments. I'm not fond of the negative, derogatory, meme culture comments. I'm just going to ignore those anyhow. So you're really just going to spin your wheels. But people that have supportive things to say and suggestions to make things better and different ideas maybe I hadn't thought of, man, I want to hear that because I'm just building this channel and I want your input. Thanks again. And everyone have a great day, good night, or good afternoon, wherever the case may be. Bye.